Superman, the legendary man of steel, symbolises power and resilience in the make-believe world. With the ability to soar through the skies, lift mountains and deflect bullets, Superman embodies the pinnacle of superhero prowess. Yet while Superman's extraordinary feats captivate our imaginations on the screen, a real Man of Steel emerged in the summer of 2013. This was not a tale from the pages of a comic book, but a true story of courage and endurance from one of the legends of MotoGP, Jorge Lorenzo. To understand how all this came to be, we need to look at everything that transpired before 2013. From dominating the 2000s to becoming a global icon by the 2010s, Valentino Rossi was the man to beat in MotoGP. As such, it was a tall order for another rider to come in and just challenge Rossi, but to stand toe-to-toe with him, Lorenzo did just that. On his debut in 2008, Lorenzo was thrown directly into the frying pan as Rossi's teammate at Yamaha. Lorenzo started well and picked up his first MotoGP win in only his third race. He led the championship for the first time in his MotoGP career. Despite a strong start, Lorenzo's underwhelming performance in the latter half of the season, combined with a remarkable late surge by Rossi, resulted in Lorenzo finishing with barely half the points of Rossi. It also showcased Lorenzo's biggest weakness, his propensity for crashes that resulted in severe injuries. In 2008 alone, he suffered from a chipped hip bone, fractured ankle and torn ligaments, to name a few, although the bike spin hated 800s didn't help his cause. However, it also showcased the ability that would make Lorenzo a legend, his ability to bounce back from setbacks in the most emphatic manner. Lorenzo put this on glorious display in 2009, finally mastering the 800. He could bang out fast laps in a metronomic manner that almost seemed otherworldly. He was also silky smooth when it came to braking and throttle input, perfectly suited to the Yamaha. Rossi faced his first true teammate challenge in Lorenzo. Despite this, Rossi's consistent performance still earned him the title, while Lorenzo finished second. 2010 marked a turning point. Lorenzo came into his own as he finished every race and never finished lower than 4th, with the highlight being a 12-race run on the podium. Lorenzo cruised his first MotoGP championship, beating Dani Pedrosa in second by a mammoth 138 points. He was so dominant that it played a substantial role in Rossi's decision to leave Yamaha for Ducati in 2011. Lorenzo now took Rossi's place as the number one rider at Yamaha. 2011 did not go to plan as Casey Stoner on a Honda proved even better and replicated Lorenzo's metronomic performance from the previous year. Stoner would win his second and final MotoGP title, and Lorenzo would again have to settle for second, 90 points adrift of the Aussie. This season would also see Lorenzo face another massive injury scare. At the Australian GP, Lorenzo would be thrown off the bike in the warm-up session and almost lose function of his ring and middle fingers. However, Lorenzo would overcome the injury and win the 2012 championship with one race to spare. That brings us to 2013, a year of transition. Stoner had retired, Rossi was back at Yamaha and Marc Marquez made his debut. As the reigning champion, Lorenzo was the man to beat. He started his title defence in style by qualifying on pole at Qatar and winning the race by beating rival and now teammate Rossi by nearly 6 seconds. For the next 5 races, Pedrosa would go on an impressive run consisting of 2 wins and 3 second places that would catapult him to the lead of the championship. However, Lorenzo would claw back some ground by winning the 5th and 6th rounds in Mugello and Catalonia respectively. He arrived at the 7th round in Assen for the Dutch TT, just 7 points behind Pedrosa. With Rossi and Marquez mounting challenges, Lorenzo knew that every point counted, and the last thing he needed now was an injury. Back then, the Dutch TT was uniquely held on Saturdays, with free practice sessions on Thursdays. Lorenzo needed to start well, and he did so by topping FP1. However, a wet FP2 session derailed his momentum in the worst possible way. At Assen, maintaining speed through many fast corners is essential, as even the slightest blunder can send you tumbling down the timing sheets. One of the trickiest corners is turn 13, a fast sweeping right-hander that leads onto the kink of turn 14, followed by a short but significant straight. Carrying as much momentum as possible through this corner is important to maximise the following fast sections. However, the wet conditions had made things much more challenging and Lorenzo suffered a high side around turn 13. He crashed at over 125 miles an hour. He went head over heels and the resulting fall broke his left clavicle or collarbone, a significant injury that often requires days if not weeks to recover. He was not only set to lose crucial ground at the championship to Pedrosa, but he was also likely to miss the next race in Germany. Lorenzo hired a private jet and flew to Barcelona to get surgery. Meanwhile, the media outlets around the world announced that this is the end of Lorenzo's participation in the 2013 Dutch TT race weekend. In his own words, Lorenzo's haste to get the surgery wasn't fueled by a desire to return to racing. In a perfect storm, he had one of the best medical teams for such injuries at his disposal, led by Dr. Michel Zaza, and the two-hour surgery went well in the early hours of Friday morning. So well in fact that Lorenzo started feeling better to the point where he began to flirt with the idea of racing on Saturday despite having a titanium plate fixed to his collarbone with 8 screws just hours before. He immediately flew back to Assen and was cleared to take part in the race after being assessed by MotoGP's medical team. One positive was that his FP1 time was good enough to earn him a direct entry into Q2, which meant that he got to start the race from 12th on the grid. Despite the shocking announcement of Lorenzo's participation, many believed that he wouldn't be able to do anything significant or even finish one of the most challenging races on the calendar mere hours after undergoing such major surgery. However, Lorenzo wouldn't end up being called the Man of Steel for nothing. He would gingerly take part in the warm-up session on Sunday and put in 11 strong laps while setting the 8th fastest time. To put this into perspective, the highest number of laps anyone else did in that session was 12. Lorenzo was just 0.7 seconds off the pace. Still, this was just a precursor of what would follow. Riding in a warm-up session as you slowly get up to speed is one thing, but racing 23 other highly motivated riders, most of whom weren't suffering from any injury at all, was a different ballgame altogether. Lorenzo rose to the occasion like a superhero. Starting from 12th, he got off to a great start and climbed up to 7th place on the opening lap. He picked up a few more places and climbed as high as 4th, directly behind Marquez by the 7th lap. By lap 9, Lorenzo, defying all logic, closed the gap down to Mark and started putting him under pressure. Sadly, the pressure could not last as even Lorenzo's pain threshold had its limits and he started to lose ground to Mark. A couple of laps later, he would lose 4th place to Cal Crutchlow, but he would valiantly hold on to 5th place until the end of the race. This astonishing performance of what was possible despite the pain forever entrenched him in the minds of MotoGP fans for what it was, a superhuman effort for one of the best talents the sport has ever produced. When it was all said and done, Lorenzo would drop just 2 points to Pedrosa, who finished in 4th. However, the joy and exhilaration would be short-lived. 2 weeks later in Germany, Lorenzo would crash again. Ironically, it would be again in FP2. The fall would bend the plate that was holding his collarbone together. This time even the Man of Steel could not conjure a comeback by the race day. He would miss the race and it would prove crucial in the long run, as he would lose the championship to Marquez by just 4 points. While a third title would have been a perfect conclusion to this story, Lorenzo had won more hearts than ever. In true Rocky-esque fashion, Lorenzo may have fallen short of the championship in 2013, but his courageous performance at Assen against all odds earned him something more legendary, a place in MotoGP lore as the Man of Steel.